Okay, and I believe we are live. Good day, my dear fellow friends. My name is Raven Marine, aka Thunbird One, and welcome to another thuncast. Where today it is episode 9 of this great, wonderful journey in this wonderful community. Now, you all are asking, why are we continuing the Thuncast at episode 9? I thought that the Caldega meme special was going to go after that. Well, sadly, that had to be delayed, due to many people not making much submissions. I was planning to release at least 10 videos within that one Caldega meme compilation, but not many submissions were able to come in, only but 2. Hopefully, in the next season, which will be season 2 on episode 20, we should be able by tomorrow or the day before that to at least get the Caldega meme special out with 20 memes. Please, I'm letting you all know to let it be videos. I saw the picture idea and it didn't end up going so worked out as planned. But do not worry, we shall not disappoint next time. Otherwise, it will be funny either way. Alright. Today we have a special guest with us. A guest who actually represents 2 in one person. The Emperor himself. You could call him a absolute god. You could call the other the god. But 2 are one and the same, but plays 2 separate roles. I give you the man, the myth himself, Algo. Do tell me, Algo, how was your day?
Productive, running things as per usual. Particularly, I see to the development sector of IOM these days. So we've been hard at work at that.
Yes, and your work has been seen, because you were able to give the Imperium of Man something that is truly can get their eyes wide open. The Imperial Knights, truly mighty warriors on the field that are made of steel, that their hearts are truly burning with passion and pride. Their mere guns represent the pure blocking of the sun, of gazing beams and giant swords. Oh, the delightful experience that you have given us. On a personal note, on many of the people here, and many people who was actually viewing the Thuncast, sorry. Thank you for giving us all these magnificent gifts. I wish that we can somehow repay you. But we have already done repaid you with a massive army and plenty of community members, am I correct?
Indeed. The nights are only going to get better.
I can't wait to see it. Alright, just letting you know from now that these videos will not be edited in any sort of way in order to capture the funny and also the important scenarios and backstories of the Caldega experience. Especially Argo is going to be one of the most interesting backstory tellers in the world. Well, in the Cuban community. Alright, first question. How did you find the IOM community? Or the community in general?
Well, it's a relatively long story. I believe I was, in retrospect, actually in the Astra Militarum at some point. In this Imperium in particular. I did dabble in Doomforge's Imperium, and I was quite active over there, but I never really found that group too stimulating. Like, the technology was good, but in my opinion, the leadership wasn't quite there. And then I met up with my friend, the Magna Defender. Some people may know him as Spartan E7. And we went over to a group called the Helghast Empire. It's one of many. We were under some guy called Pristiniax. And from there, it wasn't long until John came he must have been flanked by 4 custodies, I believe. And he came to basically announce to us in our throne room that he was going to wage war on the group. Now, the Helghast Empire group was quite dead, and the custodies basically swept the forces are actually turned up, and it wasn't before long that John marked myself and the Magna Defender to come and join him in the Imperium, and we ended up going over into the Grey Knights at Magna Defender's urging. From there, I joined the Grey Knights, and I believe my first rank was Brotherhood Champion, and I believe that's where I started in earnest in the Imperium. And then at a later date, I believe I was promoted to Grand Master, and I saw to the running of the Grey Knights. Well, what I was told to do anyway. Um, I wasn't really close to John at that point in time, but Magna Defender was. He was Supreme Grand Master. You see, Caldor Drago's position. So that's obviously in cahoots with the Emperors. The Imperium has never had a before recent times anyway, a sigillite who the Grey Knights would ordinarily be answerable to, ultimately. Um, Before long, there was a series of administrative fallings out, and the Grey Knights ended up collapsing. It was then, at my urging and Magna Defender's urging, that we were to merge into the Adeptus Custodes, and that is actually how I became Custodes for the first time. From there, it was quite cutthroat. I was under two captain generals. One was Revan, and I must say, Revan's style of leadership or lack thereof was not very inspiring and was very unbecoming of a captain general, let alone a custodes. So he was soon replaced with Vitius, and the community in the custodes back then was relatively small, but I said it was about a medium size, and there were a lot of strong personalities in this group. There were old heads from before my time, obviously. Like there was a few fruity characters like Starkiest Patriot. I seem to recall he had a new life-threatening illness every other month. He was never in game, and I think I was actually answerable to him for months as I earned my way up the ranks. Um, so harkening back to why the Custodes community at that time in the Imperium was cutthroat is because there was a raiding list called the Dread Host, and if you were not on that list, you were not considered an elite, and you were basically pretty much you were just considered someone who was free ranked into the Custodes. Luckily, I did qualify for this Dread Host list, even though I would not consider myself to be a very consummate gunfighter. Um, Wherever I went, I was renowned for my sword fighting, but back then the Imperium did not do that. I think we did rarely. I think we raided Prime Legion sometimes, but that's besides the point. Um, Earning my way up through the Shield Captain ranks was probably it was a grueling experience being answerable to the majority of people above me were just I didn't really consider them competent at all, and I had to bite my tongue and sit on my ego as these people were just making incorrect decisions. People who didn't bother to show up for most events. Um, a captain general who really should never have entered the division. It was a complete mess. I think there was one captain general that I actually enjoyed my time under, Garsman Vitius, he's now called, and I believe I can't remember what captain general he was, what number he was, but he was very good at what he did. And even when I took over as captain general, eventually, he was a very valued valued member in my roster, and I was sad to see him go. He retired 2 years back. But yeah, though it was a long, hectic journey, and eventually I was placed under the auspices of John himself, and I began advising him. that's basically the journey I had to where I am now.
Hmm, fascinating. Beyond everything else, you've gone through that trial and tribulation. You were able to give us a full insight into how it all began, how the Horus heresy for the group had truly begun. Mostly what I'm trying to say, or here, is that basically some of the Primarchs did not like John, and therefore that has just been simply, well, hard enough that you had to take his side and help him. Am I getting this
Uh,
right?
I can't take credit for that because that was before my time. That was maybe 1 or 2 years before my time. John would be able to tell you more. I was not involved in the Imperium at that point in time. That was all on John. John pulled himself through that. John, he resisted the threats. He
Still
he
pursued
took
on.
charge of the group himself. Yes, he steeled himself, went through it all. He's been around since the beginning, the founder of the Imperium, and yeah, that as soon as I heard about that, I got all the context. That's really where my respect for him started to grow.
Fascinating. And after that, you still went by his side. You still followed him to the very end. And up to now, the whole heresy over. You finally almost there to the golden age that you ever so wanted. You achieved true paradise. Tell me, was it so hard that you wouldn't want to relive those days?
I would do it all again. Not, I wouldn't enjoy it. It was definitely, it felt like you were plunged into anima sola. It's just, it was complete purgatory. Nothing really got done until months after something in particular being requested or tasked of us. Development was slow. We suffered from a great many incompetent officers. We had multiple lapses in power. It was all very much a political climate, and it was very, very volatile. There was a number of drastic measures we've had to have taken since
Hmm.
then. I mean, during then, and I think luck definitely factored into the group itself surviving through those trying times, because it really did not help that among the most common positions of these incompetents was the Lord Commander militant position itself, which is arguably probably the most important High Lord of Terror position, because they're in charge of most of the group's activity.
Hmm.
And there was much trial and error when it came to finding an actual viable candidate for that position, and we found that in Boffides.
Hmm. So that's the fire when both of these came in. Interesting. Hmm. Does this trial still go on up to this day?
Trials of error. Um, I think most recently, another position that received the same treatment as this was fabricated general, I'd say.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
we've we've suffered from incompetence in that position as well. Fabricated generals important. Well, all High Lord of Terror positions are important, but it's a greater High Lord of Terror position. It's fabricated generals are in charge of the Adeptus Mechanicus, which only recently graduated into a full military force. But being functionally the head developer of the group, you have to be very competent. High Lord of Terror competent. High Lord of Terror notwithstanding. Um, Gungerix fulfills his duty well, but Lupercal and Visceral not so much.
Fascinating. So you would describe them all such as that? Hmm. Very, very well said. If they had taken the time and patience to be part of the podcast as well, they would have at least shared their opinion. And I guess that some of them would want to say that they're glad to work with you. If I'm getting this statement correct.
I think in terms of people working with me, it's very much. I don't mean to speak for them, but there's probably mixed opinions about me because I have a very particular way of running things.
Hmm.
Obviously, sometimes I do clash with people, but I try to remain amicable and resolve conflicts rationally and calmly.
Hmm.
Um, I'd leave it up to them to comment on that if they ever do a thuncast.
All right. First question, very well answered. You were able to explain a lot of details that got a lot of people thinking and a lot of people knowing of what had started this, well, crusade of just betrayal. Could you call it betrayal?
Hmm. In some instances, I would say I did deal with traitors. Yes. Um, there was the Inquisition incident with Bot Monster Within, who to this day is trying to regain access into the Imperium. We've heard, I think Revan's a very popular example. I'm sure many people who watch this will know who that is. Um, the Lord Commander militants, as I've mentioned prior, so many traitors that I can't really, I can't name them all. It was to the point where one day I had to sit down and make a list and categorize the greatest offenders against the Imperium. But even then, I guarantee I've missed some.
Hmm. All right. Now, all right, that's really interesting. All right. For question number two, you were able to answer like question number two with question number one, like in an all-in-one scenario. So, would you like to still hear it but provide with a different opinion?
Sure,
All
hit me.
right. All right. What was your journey like in the IOM community? Oh,
My journey, volatile. Every time I woke up, there was a slew of new DMs from either Magna or other contemporaries at the time, and my position was always changing and shifting. I didn't really do anything that warranted my promotion from Brotherhood champion to Grandmaster, but there I was. Um, the custody stuff I did have a hand in, but that also again happened overnight. Um, and I think the great bulk of my journey in IOM occurred within the custodies, which I already mentioned was very cutthroat, and exile was always a looming threat
hmm,
because the hands in that division at the time were constantly shifting. There were so many incompetent people who did not deserve to be in there who were being weeded out, and suspicion was being cast on others like myself. It was they were definitely trying times, definitely trying times.
hmm. See. Well, at least those trying times are over, right?
That we know of, but until we've got a full panoply of places and strong command infrastructure across the genre, we're not out of the woods yet.
Hmm. Right. Very, very well said. All right. Third question. What was your position like in the IOM community? Well, what is your position like in the IOM community?
Right now,
Yes.
if I had to sum it up, I'm the executive director of everything that goes on in the Imperium, and so is John. We confer on decisions. I pass down directives to the developer team. I sanction, and I mean, I say sanction. I've created probably 95% of the documents in the community. I've um, I'm in charge of sound design. I'm in charge of making sure morphs get made. I'm in charge of my division, obviously. I'm in charge of making sure the High Lords are doing their jobs properly and are comfortable as possible. I have a lot of responsibilities to juggle, but I've been in the job so long, it's not really, I wouldn't say it's stressful. But yeah, I think at one point I was given the opportunity to become the emperor himself, but um,
You denied it.
I I didn't want to disrespect John by taking over completely, so
Mm.
I decided to split the reins.
So in a way, you secure your friendship with John even further. And I'm not, and I'm sorry if this sounds like a full-on my, what's the word I'm looking for? Maniacal scheme. I might be getting the word wrong there, but you basically secured your position with John to even be having a more strong and firm friendship with him.
Well,
Um,
I figured also that two heads were better than one,
true.
so I decided why should I proceed alone? Because that was one disrespect the founder of the group, who's gone through a lot to secure the group's position in the genre on Roblox itself, and be weaker for it. So I decided what would be best for both parties would be to split the power and increase our thinking
Efforts,
ability.
efforts, and
Our
thinking
efforts.
ability. Hmm. Okay.
Two heads are always better than one.
True. Beyond everything else, I didn't know how you guys would actually be able to do it, well, you all by yourself. Imagine a different timeline where you full on took the mantle. And I don't even think that would have been well due to life and the economy almost going to hell.
I think it would be possible, but it would definitely be more strenuous on the person. Um, it's easier to split the responsibilities of such a mammoth project between two people than one, as I've said. But yeah, it would definitely be pretty hectic if it was just one person running the show completely.
Very well said for this third question. I'm really truly fascinated. All just by Ogle yourself alone, you're able to provide almost every bit of information of what John could have done. I imagine how it would be more interesting if he was here to do it by himself. However,
I think John would definitely John would be able to provide probably even more information than myself because he's been around since the beginning.
however, John will have to wait due to the little shuffle system I have. If you didn't know how the shuffle
Mm.
system works, I would shake the box. I would take out a person's name out of it, and if that person already got done with the podcast, I would put the name to the side and wait for them for next year. Therefore, a rinse and repeat,
Mm.
you may think. So,
Yeah.
however, third question, very well said. Now, here is a fourth question for you. What are you going to do in the near future in IOM?
The same thing I've always done, really. I plan on expanding the Adeptus Custodes out. I've already had the entire initiation process rewritten, and we intend on taking new recruits soon. Um, I just want to up their representation in the community and just ensure everything's in optimal order. I plan on opening more factions in the genre as well, like the Dark Eldar.
Ooh, wait, please tell me. Is there going to be. Oh, wait. Is there going to be. Uh. The Farsight Enclave, by any chance?
Very likely when we find someone to lead it, yes.
Oh,
Very likely.
you. Oh. But, Algo, you had missed out on a guy who was actually going to do it. Oh my.
They
Maybe
all
I'll.
come to us eventually. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Maybe when he probably changes his mind. You hear that, my dear friend? It could still be possible for the guest who's going to be listening to this. All right,
Definitely possible.
all right. But well said on the full question. I'm glad you're taking priority. Alright. Fifth question. What do you think of the IOM community itself? The thing that you worked so hard to try to achieve and now achieved after this thing? What day?
The IOM community when I joined, I won't sugarcoat it. It was divisive.
Hmm.
There was a lot of there's there are a lot of instances of people jumping on bandwagons, witch hunting people, antagonizing people, and discipline was not very strong because I imagine at the time I joined, joined for good. I crashed into the group. The high rank systems core was suffering greatly. One of the first things I set out to do was make it so that the discipline in IOM was remedied. It's not perfect, but what is perfect? But it is miles better than it was when I joined.
Hmm.
We've stamped out witch hunting, cliques. I was very staunchly against that. You can never let a friendship clique in a community, or else, God forbid, they might even work their way up to a management position, rank all of their friends, and run everything into the ground. I've been against that since day one. Um, but there have been times in the Imperium's history where I've had to take drastic measures to ensure the survival of the Imperium, particularly when we were going through our great phase of development hell. For anyone who doesn't know what development hell is, it's a period of time where a development team is working on something, but there is very little progress being made because there's a standstill in the development processes. So
Hmm.
we went through maybe a year, maybe two, of development hell, where we just basically our main sources of activity were inspections, Imperator Somnium, Omnissiah's Will, and I think Cadia near the beginning, the old Cadia. Um, but yeah, they were trying times, and the Imperium went through a lot of chopping and changing. Um, we had to establish uh, chapters like the Blood Angels and the Ultramarines at the time. They were intended to encourage people to join the group as Astartes because back then, at least, the main motivator behind people joining the Imperium was to one day become an Astartes. So I figured, why not shut the guard down temporarily as they were suffering? There was nothing to do to represent as a guardsman, and instead open these chapters commercially and allow people to stand as Astartes at the Imperator Somnium, sustain the Imperium while I focus on development processes behind the scene and see if I can't expedite the processes. Um,
Fascinating.
so there was a lot of that, but and there were hearts broken when we had to eventually do away with the chapters. That's part of the course. But through all of it, we ended up succeeding. Terror never came to light. We will one day. One day, we will do it. But we ended up getting Caldega instead, and I suppose that was a happy accident. And now we can just look for we all we can do is look forward as we have new maps commissioned and constructed right before our eyes, as is Cadia right now, and many other maps that we are working on in secret that we haven't dropped sneak peeks for yet.
Truly something to know greatly. The reason why the god was taken down and half of the people were ascended to almost Astartes. Truly something to know about. And you actually feel for the many people that have lost everything? I thought, well, for the rumors that I've heard, that you didn't feel anything. That you even took a pleasure of simply taking it down just so you can pursue your little something. And I'm not gonna point any names or anything here, but I actually forgot about the names of people, so I do apologize on that.
Um, I'm not sure what I would be pursuing, seeing as I was, trying to sustain the group's activity. But I do feel a little bit for the people who did earn their stuff, their positions in the Blood Angels and the Ultramarines, and we had to sustain the group somehow, but they couldn't remain open in the states that they were. They were just it was one catastrophe after another, and I suppose I am responsible for shutting down each chapter that's come and gone. Someone had to do it,
Mm,
and it's not really a position that you take any pleasure in. It's very people do go through the emotions when you arrive at their doorstep, announce to them that you will be taking away everything they've worked to earn. People do get emotional, people do get erratic, but you just have to maintain Sangfroid and go ahead and commit. It's for the benefit of the group. It's not an easy task, but as I said, someone has to do it.
mm. I, as a group man once before, I had to make sacrifices, and oddly enough, I still make sacrifices up to this day. With a little side thing that I have, which I'll get to you about that shortly, and I know how it would feel. So, those that you had to do it, I believe it was actually a right choice. Though they have to start all over, it's, I guess, the Caldega experience.
Well, the thing is, when people are high up, I do seek to compensate those who have, earned their way into positions. I don't ever leave people dead in the water, but I never did any of it out of, the pleasure of doing it. That's quite frankly a preposterous claim. I'm, you know, it's just no one else is really willing to shut down chapters. It's like putting down an animal almost. It's an emotional,
Thing to do.
it's an emotional task. Yes.
I feel you. I really do. Especially to some of the sacrifices I had to make. However, question number 5, well answered. The final question. Final question you can actually answer for yourself and probably even maybe ask the developers to do so. So beyond everything else, you almost got everything. But what is the one thing that you would want in the IOM? Basically, game, Caldega, anything.
Terror.
Terra?
Yep. Terror and the Imperial Palace, because I'm still butthurt that we didn't manage to get it done through all that time in development hell. So we're going to start it in the future and get it done right.
Hmm. Very, very well thing to finish. Finally rip off the band-aid for good. Something that is truly great. Great choice, though, on that one last final question. Algo, you have answered every question with the significant best as you can, and therefore, with all that best, you were able to give us some insight on how everything is for the newcomers, but for the old, I guess they had already knew, and therefore, maybe they're glad that you were able to be open about it. In this case, you were able to do it. Now, how do you feel?
Well, it's a job that you don't really, there's no glory in it really. The things that you do behind the scenes, particularly when I wasn't on this standing that I am with John now, it's a very thankless job, and I've been subject to a great many rumors that, quite frankly, are completely unfounded. And I feel like I've been demonized somewhat by other communities, but everything I've done has been for the benefit of the Imperium. and it never really bothered me that there was no thanking in the meantime. And all I've done is just look forward as I've worked to make the group better
Hmm.
and ensure that development is healthy.
Very well said. You know, Olga, for you, I haven't been able to tell you my full backstory. Would you like for me to tell you about my journey and how I actually come to find this group? Now that I finally see it as a full-on place that I once had before,
Yes, go ahead.
it was a long time ago. Basically, when I was first being introduced to Warhammer 40k itself, I used to be part of an old group that a friend of mine was able to show me. He was my mentor. Him and I go way back, especially to times of heresy. I would wake up, I would rank up through the ranks as ever, gone to guardsmen, MT of their caliber, even commissar. After a while, I loved the being commissar to the point where I loved the men that I served with, actually. And after that, I got ascended. I had a choice to become become anything or any space marine faction that I wanted. And I do apologize if I'm messing up the fray, but some of this stuff is fucky to me. It was the day when I joined the Templars, and boy, it was like a depressed group. But however, I was able to change it. With many years and many practices, I was able to make the Templars great again. We were active. We were the main leading army for the Imperium of Man, the representations of what made us glorifying and holy. We were perfect. However, great retirement had struck, and I had to say goodbye to all my friends, all the people that I had to go with. My mentor, he also had to leave as well. After that, I tried to find salvation elsewhere. I went to so many communities, so many games, made a life there, but ended up leaving it. It didn't provide me that good trial that I was looking for in the 40k game. There was a time where I actually was part of a one Rowhammer 40k group tabletop, which I kind of worked on some of the models. And it still runs up to this day, and that's like my second greatest achievement ever. But I still wasn't satisfied. I ended up walking and searching until I found a Mac and ended up posting a link in the main server that I was in. Him and I go way back. After he showed me the game and everything, he was able to show me the models that he was able to make due to your order and all, and it was beautiful. Everything that he worked on that I was able to prophesize for him had came true, and I wanted to see it for myself. So, it was me finally coming out of hiding. I went with this group. At first, and this is going to be a fun fact for you, I was about to go to Revan's. After talking to Revens for some time, I kind of figured out that he was a nice guy. And therefore, as long as you get to know him as a person, not a person who would just be into clanning, he would be something to understand. But from your guys' experience, I guess I'm trying to still process that, whether it was a lie or not. My goal here that I'm still trying to think about is to try to help the community as best as I can. That's why I made the podcast. That's why I made these vlogs. That's why I want to help. Because back in my 40k days in the Templars, I couldn't been able to do that. I couldn't been able to make it last a little bit more longer. I couldn't. But now here I can. And that is why I say now and here that I'm glad that you guys like my stuff that I'm doing for the community. And I want to do more. And that do more is I want to at least be part, well, of the, not the deving, but helping in the community wise, especially in the DA.
Yes, that's very respectable. These these motivations of yours. It's the things you're doing for the Imperium are on the media front. They really help the public representation of the group, and that's a great asset to our coverage and our image to the outside of the 40k genre. Very well done, Dunburn.
Thank you. I know when I heard that you guys wanted to be part of developers wanted to fall and be part of the podcast, I actually have had tears of joy, thinking that it would just be an affair with the amount of days. I'm glad that you guys wanted to come on and at least share your opinion, because I'm interested into the story of how this group began. And if I am actually able to get to Algo and him from his words can tell me more about how he was able to start this glorious journey of a crusade, then I can just say that halfway, that my dream for the thuncast and the logs would be completed.
Hmm. Well, it's only going to get better with subsequent episodes. Um, if you want my recommendation, maybe you should have more than one person at a time in later episodes.
Ah, yeah.
I'd be more than willing to do an episode with John.
Mm. Now that
That would
has
be
been
fun.
now that has been planned for quite some time, and I'm still trying to think on it. Just a reminder that this was season one. This is kind of like season
Mm.
two, and I'm planning to have some things new within the season two. Probably a Discord for all the logs and everything, so everybody can just look at it and watch it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's in the works. I'm still trying to plan for that, but that is still in the works. I'm thinking about. Truly, John. I mean, what the sorry. I'll go. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your opinions, and thank you for giving us a clear insight on what you do for this wonderful community. Many people
You're very
say,
welcome, Sunburn.
"Oh, sorry."
Yes, you're fine.
Thank you for what you have done for us, and thank you for giving birth to a mere place where we can finally accept our dreams without the wretched cleaning experience being in the way.
It's only going to get better.
But there is one question, and I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it. And if I do answer this to you, I don't even think that you would be able to provide a proper answer. By any chance, do you know who is Forts?
Who is who?
Forts, a friend of mine. I only,
Vault.
yeah,
How do you spell that? VAUGHTZ?
no, no, I'm sorry, Forts, Forts.
FORTS. Forts. I
Yeah.
can't say I'm familiar.
Um, I believe Forts. He was a man that was inside the what positions of clone and both of these. In this case, he was almost a representation. He was one of my admirers that I actually enjoyed. I admired him for how he pursued on and everything. But after a while, I didn't know what happened to him. And to this
Hmm.
day, I still don't know. By any chance, do you do you know why he was removed? And like I said, I'll accept that if you don't answer this question at all. I just want to
Oh,
know.
Fortis.
Yeah, oh yes, there we go. Fortis.
Fortis et honoris.
Yes,
Fortis et honoris.
I just kind of want
He,
to know. Wait, before
I,
before
bel
you
I,
go on, the reason why I want to know is I stick around between the good friends that I know. And me losing all my friends back in my Templar days, I do not wish to know. I do not wish to not know without it being a good reason. So I will
well,
understand if you don't want to tell me.
the thing with Fortis is, in the beginning, he was a very efficient addition to the high-ranking members of the Imperium, and he worked well. And I promised him position one day of Grand Provost Marshal on the High Lords of Terror. Um, but I didn't give it to him straight away, as I wanted to see how he'd react in positions of power. So we gave him the Adeptus Arbiters. We let him run his operations. He recruited people. Things were going smoothly. But as time went on with Fortus, power did get to his head, and he started to clash more and more with members of the Imperium, particularly myself, high-ranking members of the Imperium. And frequently he tried to strong arm his decisions that he believed were right. And quite frankly, you could not reason with Fortis when he made up his mind on something. It got to a position where Fortis tried to get John to remove me, and there was also a attempted coup. He tried to turn all of the high-ranking members in the Imperium against myself and see me ousted because I disagreed. Well, let's say we disagreed with each other's leadership techniques. Many things about Fortis came to light.
Oh God,
Yes.
hopefully that I can't even edit that out. Oh no.
You can edit it out. YouTube lets you do that when you upload it. It's fine. You can just trim it out.
Hopefully that. Hopefully.
I can show you actually, but
But maybe
all of the
maybe later.
all of the details are under his entry in the blacklist. Fortis burned bright, but the brightest candles burn half as long in most cases, and that's what Fortis was.
Let's see. The great man that I admired now is just nothing to me anymore.
Not so great anymore, unfortunately, but he made his bed and he had to lie in it.
I really want to help, and I will do, and I really am going to try my best if I ever reach the leadership position of your ranks. I'll not try to be corrupt. I'm a man of honor. I always respected the rules of each and every group that I joined. And if this is not going to convince you by any chance, which you'll probably not, but there's something to think about. I will not, and I mean I will not betray any one of you. I am a mere man who represents loyalty. I do not wish to simply say, or see any of my fair brothers go without a fair reason.
Well, you've done well so far, reaching the Librarium of the Dark Angels, so we'll just have to see. But do be wary, authority does corrupt.
That is true. But hey, I was once a chaplain, and I had to make sure that my brothers were on. It may have not been pleasant for me to kick each brother who was not active at all, who didn't show that glorious honor. It was rough, actually.
Mm.
But now I'm no longer a chaplain. I'm a librarian. And if that position has to be done upon me again, then I will have to make the most toughest decisions. And if it will cost me my friendship, so be it. But other than that, thank you for having us on. We actually reached to the 49-minute mark, so we must be calling this a close. I think hopefully we're able to find that out, find that little misdeed of a word. But you have a wonderful day and enjoy yourself.
You too, Sunburn. I'll DM you how to trim your videos when you upload to YouTube. It should
Yeah.
be the last step before you press uploads. I'll show you.
Yes. Another note, my dear fellow friends, thank you for being around for this long. Truly, we have learned a lot today. Thanks, Algo, for coming on, and thank for the community for listening. Oh, and one more thing. What is the one thing you would want to say to your fellow friends and your peers that are still in the Imperium of Man today?
Get back to work.
All right. With that being said, have a wonderful day, everyone. And farewell. Log end.